Hi folks, we're back for the final day of the hobby weekend. We've had people in from about 10 o'clock, so they've already been hobbying away. We've even got gamers going here. I think Paul wasn't happy with getting slapped down early yesterday, so Dave's decided to give him a slap with some Tyranids today, so that'll be fun for him. He's assured me he will run his hobby in double quick time. But it does look nice on the table, so that's good. So this is a shorter day for us today. People will be sort of starting to drift off as well, but that's no excuse for people at home not to keep on hobbying away. We have some more project reviews later on. We've got a Skype call with Elisar. We might see if we can get some other people into Skype calls as well. AJ and Thomas are going to be doing a question and answer session around about 3 o'clock. So we've got a lot going on here, and as you can see, we've still got people going great guns on their various projects. So Clifford's been working away on his NIDs. As is Ryan, and there's a certain orange feel to the Tyranids on this side of the table currently. And we have Custard Marines as well with Shay. He's been rocking the gold. I've been quite impressed with the amount of work that people have managed to get done this weekend. Some people more than others. Warren keeps trying to finish his stuff off.
I am trying. I'm very trying.
I was just going to say that, as my mother used to say. But you're getting closer to getting the contrast onto the last of your big fleshy demons.
Yes. So I, yesterday, do you know, I've accomplished a fair bit over the weekend, right? So I have the bases of my bases done. I have all of the kind of the little set-on bits that are going to decorate the bases to theme it all. So I have them ready to go. I just need to glue these together and then give them a little bit of airbrushing, very basic airbrushing. Just going to shade it to try and tie it all together. I got all of the metallic demons, the heavy demons, sprayed with the Army Painter plate mail, and then I did I took the contrast Blood Angels red and just airbrushed that over it to try and give me this kind of candy red. So I'm kind of liking it and kind of regretting it since seeing Laughing Boy's scheme yesterday. Laughing Boy's scheme has appealed to me greatly since seeing it. But I'm gonna work at it. I've started to basically what I'm doing is one juggernaut. I'm going back and forth just on it every now and again, just to pick out some bits, just to see if I can what I'm going to do with it to try and change things up a little bit. However, the guy I'm most proud of is my Fleshy Demon. So this is my Fleshy Demon test piece. Okay, let's see if that comes out. There you go. So that is Warren's first 28mm miniature that he's painted in probably some years now. Contrast paints work very well. And I discovered something, Jerry.
Yes.
I discovered something. Right. So, as I was saying to the guys here, this is the Games Workshop assembly handle. Right?
I'm aware of his work.
It's utter shite. Right? I mean, what a crap product. Like, utterly crap. All right? The painting handles are amazing. Okay? So the little handles you get for painting, superb. The big handle that you get for painting, superb. I highly recommend, own dozens of them. It just speeds up your life and it makes life easier. This is supposed to be for assembly, okay? I have tried it for assembly, and technically, it's just shite. So I'm trying to think of the word here, but the word shite keeps flashing into my mind.
Is it because it won't grip, or is it because it won't hold into position?
It's because it's shite. It's just crap in every way. However, it is amazing as well.
Yes.
Okay, it is absolutely amazing because I have reached this stage of hobby where I'm trying to fast track things. So what I find is everything is now done by me kind of in sub-assemblies, okay? So my bases are done separately from my little dudes. So what I discovered is that I want to paint the little dudes, but I don't want to put them onto bases. So I could muck around with the stuff like pinning and things like that there. Or what you can do is just gently clamp him in that.
You're like a clampet.
Now watch this, right? So stand back. You put that bit there on your chest, okay? You get your paintbrush and you hold that bit in that hand and this bit in this hand. Now watch. Come in close. Come in close. Not on me. They want to see this. They want to see this. Watch this. I now have complete control over spinning and moving of that miniature, and I have an anchor point nearby to allow me to do my painting. So I'll be writing to Games Workshop today to say, thou shalt no longer sell this as the miniature assembly handle. Thou shalt sell this as the amazing chest-mounted painting wibbly-jibbly handle. I'm going out to relabel everything that we have in the store. It's all going to get a brand new label.
Is that why you picked up those Sharpies earlier?
Yep, I'm going to score it out. It's no longer an assembly handle. It's a wibbly-bibbly painting handle for sub-assemblies. So there you go. Fun times. Hobby weekends on OnTableTop. You teach a bit, you learn a bit, you chillax a lot. This is it. This is it. Yes, I have put the calories on.
It's the way of the future.
Big time.
We all look forward to the weigh-in with you and Gaz later on. Because it's Sunday.
It is?
Yeah, Sunday weigh-in. Somebody's laughing.
Chips, sausages and gravy last night. I found a brand new favourite place for gravy. So, yeah.
Right, well, we'll leave him dreaming of gravy and not of being weighed. And wibbly-jibbly things. Jason's been walking through his orcs at Ray of Knots with the contrast as well.
Yes, yeah. I can't see you because I've got my my glasses of sex appeal plus 10, which I will take off.
Can you see him at home?
Can you see him at home? So that's the only one I've finished.
Yeah, but you always have to do a test piece.
You do. That is my test piece, and actually, I think that looks all right. For tabletop, that'll be fine. So I'm quite pleased with that. And that's basically following the Citadel Paint app recommendations for colour, and it works perfectly.
Happy days. So you should be able to truck through the rest of them in short order then. Absolutely. When you get the chance.
I'll be finished by what, 1 o'clock.
Nice. See, Justin, that's how you do it. You make broad, I'll say, statements, and then you just don't actually follow through.
Just actually follow through. Well, it helps that I came in before 4 o'clock yesterday.
Right, well, we'll let you tear on there. So, amongst the others, we've got people painting, we've got people at the far end doing quite a bit of modelling and hobbying. Not much paint being applied, but an awful lot of super detailing on plastic kits with resin and brass edge parts that we'll probably stop in with later on. So yeah, follow us today on Twitter. Yes, I hadn't forgotten. Follow us today on Twitter, Sam. Stick with us on the project section, and later on we'll be announcing the 2 winners for the Chainsword kits, one from one of the projects in here, and also if you've updated your project with the digital ticket, you're in with a chance of winning over on the OnTableTop website as well. So make sure if you have been working through stuff that you've actually been posting there as well, to be in with a chance to win one of those kits. And we're going to speak to you again soon. Bye bye. Hello again, folks. We're back for probably our final look at the project logs today. Although not the final time we'll be talking about the project.
Of course. The projects are eternal.
Well, the projects are eternal, but we've some winners to announce later on, so we'll come back to those. But we want to have a quick catch up with one of the streamers, Elisar from the site. So Dylan, he's with us, and we're going to be looking through a few bits and bobs that you've been working on that's caught our eye over this morning and last night. So how's it been going for you? You've been twitching away.
Yeah, I've been twitching away. It's been really good. Got a lot of people active in the chat. It was pretty intimidating though when I log on to Twitch and then it's Jerry and Ben. So it's
well, you know, it's hard to be starstruck sometimes, isn't it?
Quite hard. You get over it rather quickly though, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's the story of my life. People getting over me rather quickly.
No, you're too tall for me.
It's been fun. Something I've never done it before, so it was really fun.
I really, this is my first time seeing your stream setup, and I'm loving all the books you've got there, especially for two particular books. For one,
Regimental Fire and Fury clearly is one of them.
That wasn't the one I'm looking at. No, that wasn't the one I'm looking at. No, the beauty of the Middle Earth strategy battle game. I know I'm supposed to be talking about Warhammer 40k this weekend, but there is only one.
Shocking all the.
It's on the side there. It's over there. Yeah.
So. What have we got to start looking at project-wise then?
Okay, so the first project we're going to be looking at is one that was created by Captain Italia, and it is the Krieg 3rd Armored Division, the Iron Knights.
All right.
Now, this is one I know that really caught your eye.
Yeah, this was one I seen this afternoon when I finally managed to get in front of a screen and they stopped shoving a camera in my face. And Captain Italia, he's only just really joined us today, but
yeah,
he's been doing some absolutely gorgeous work there.
Oh, that's your gorgeous work there. Yeah,
that's my gorgeous work there. But his idea is, even though he's only jumping into the project later on, he wants to get the entire sort of weathering and detailing work done on this Krieg Macarius tank, and he's been firing out at a rate of knots. So, including things like I believe that turret number and shield was free-handed on there.
Really?
Yeah, because he does say free-handing on a curved surface is a tricky proposition. I'm going, well, you know, it's okay, I suppose.
yeah. That's
C+,
insane.
Good C+.
This is absolutely incredible, the level of detail on this. I know he was saying the reason he's working on this is to increase his tank presence for the Apocalypse games that he and his friends play when he visits the States. And if he rocks up with a load of tanks like this for an Apocalypse game, I want to see that game. I want to see pictures of that full army laid out.
The thing is, when you have something painted like that, it gets set on the table and then pretty much immediately shot to death and lifted off again. That's why it's easier just to play with grey paint or grey plastic and unprimed miniatures. That's what I think anyway.
I know, that's why I do it.
Saves me like dodgy rolls. I know you've seen this one as well, Dylan.
Yeah. I had in the Twitch stream, I just sort of asked people to put in their favorite projects, and this one came up pretty much straight away. The level of rust around all the panels and stuff is mind blowing.
How would you achieve that effect?
With paints. So I think he
weathering powders. Yeah,
I think he does go through and explains it. Now it's if you go to the first image that he puts up, it is just the airbrush tank and it's been color modulated, so it's very clean. There you go.
That one.
Yeah. And then after that, you can start doing the detailing on top, because it's mostly like an orange or terracotta color for the rust. I don't know if he's actually used streaking effects themselves, but you can get really nice enamel and oil streaking effects where you put them down and then give them a little time to start drying out, and you can actually manipulate them very easily to get this sort of idea. And then you can just build it up in layers, and judging by the sort of the wet mark at the top right of that panel, that I think that's just beside Dylan's head there, you'll see a couple of big streaks. Yeah, so that leads me to believe that well, exactly right, Dylan. Yeah, just where you pointed.
Oh, cool. I think I kind of
that was good. I think that is what he's used here. He's used either an enamel or an oil wash, and then you just drag it down with a flat brush and you get these sort of rust and weathered and watermarks appearing. Then for the actual gouges and scratches, you can do that with stippling, with sponging on, and then with some brushwork to get that sort of random element. Once you've done it in the orange, you can just highlight the bottoms of some of those pieces with a light color or a base coat color to show that the paint is chipped away and you've got that streak. So it's relatively simple to do. John's done some of that on I think his Presonians. So there are a couple of different tutorial videos kicking around with those. But yeah, I think the amount of weathering he's got on there looks absolutely fantastic.
It looks dirty, battered, everything that the Death Quarter Krieg should look like.
Yeah, they've been through the wars.
Quite literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried any of these effects on your own miniatures, Dylan?
Never. No, not even close.
Oh, you should give them
nowhere near as close as that.
Definitely give them a go. They're ridiculously easy to do, actually, once you start getting into it. I tried it on some World War II tanks and armour that I was playing about with after the Western Desert Bolt Action Boot Camp. And it's surprising how good an effect you can achieve very quickly just through something as simple as getting a sponge out and a bit of grey paint and then just dabbing it everywhere. And go there, yeah, that's it. I've got the chips, and then just doing strokes with the brush afterwards in the same dark grey gives you the scratches and gouges, and it has that overall random effect. Because if you try and paint it all with a brush, you'll go mental. And if you just do sponging, it looks really weird. You need that sort of combination of long scratches, of small little dings and chips, of rocks being thrown up. So yeah. Okay. I love that he's just throwing this out here pretty much on the last day, going, I want to join in. It'd be better to join in now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to join in. Here we go. And just threw that one right out there. So smashing stuff.
Okay, moving on to the next one. We're taking another look at Guards by Hairy Brains, who just quickly updated us with their Sunday project. Now, this is one was looked at previously. I think yourself and Ben looked at this one.
Yes.
Where they've been converted with the sort of Tommy World War I helmet options.
Tin pots on them.
Yeah, which is a great look for them. It matches the whole aesthetic that I've always imagined of the Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
They're not bright and shiny and new. They're down there in the dirt. They've also finished with this tank here with the metallic effects. And again, we see a tank that is functional. There is nothing... I hate to say there's nothing pretty about it, because it is pretty in how it's been painted. But
it's not parade ground.
There we go,
It's not straight off the factory floor and in there. Yeah. I do like how he's done this. I really like just seeing the overall look of this from start to finish. Even just from the idea of sticking the tin pots on them and not going for standard military colours, going, oh, you know what? I'm going to go for a nice Prussian blue on all the armour. Because, why hide? As we learned from Robin Williams, if you're going to fight, clash.
Fair enough.
Camo, no one can see you.
Yeah, true enough. What did you think of this one, Dylan?
I like that it's pretty much all done with contrast paints by the look of it. So it's same as what Laughing Boy's been doing, just contrast paints, and you can really knock out a project very, very quickly with them. I really like the battle boulders too. They look fantastic.
It's been very impressive this weekend, seeing just what everyone can achieve with the contrast paints.
Yeah.
And I've yet to have a go with the contrast paints myself. But this really makes me want to break them out. I've got a couple of war bands that need painting. I may have to fork over for some contrast paints now.
It's one of these things where they do take experimentation to learn how to use them best. Robert, who's been working on some Nurgle stuff, has, I think, got every contrast paint in front of him now, and a different plague bearer mounted on a little upside down shot glass that he's been just trying them out with. And what we've noticed is you do need to test them in advance, because the consistency of the contrast paints is not consistent. So some people have slathered brown on and it looks fantastic, and then they've picked up a purple and put it on to the same amount and the same effect, and it's dried terribly. And you go, oh God, these... So some of them are really pigment heavy, much more so than others. And if you apply them in the same way, it pulls almost to blackness and dries badly. So it's not a one-stop shop that you're going to be able to go in, grab them, try it immediately, and everything will look great. I would suggest trying each of them out, because they've different pigment intensities almost between them. And what works with a brown might not work with a purple. I know the purple was particularly... bad for this, whereas the red had gone on much smoother. So it's one of these things where it's like anything in your paint box. you need to try it out, see how it works and how it works best for you. But yeah, the ability to get certain things done very quickly, and some of the people like Chris Caesar has been doing web
Yes, his stuff has been
Siege.
fantastic.
Yeah, so being able to work those two into each other in a much easier manner than trying to do the same sort of thing with if you try to do it with regular acrylics, because they're not translucent, you have to do an awful lot of wet blending to get the two shades to move into each other, and then you're still going to have to go back and do the highlighting on them afterwards. Whereas because this will dry and shrink down, so you end up with the highlights there, you can do the transitions from one shade to another, and then the highlights and shading will take care of themselves as it dries, and it takes out 2 or 3 steps. So yeah, that's really interesting. So depending on the effect you're after and what you're trying with them, I think contrast paints could be very handy to have.
Yeah. Have you had the chance to give them a try, Dylan?
No, I haven't actually used contrast paints yet. I would use them on the Nurgle, but half of it's already painted normally, so I don't want to. My OCD would just drive me absolutely insane.
Yeah, I seeing a set of regular and then a set of contrasty demons would just it would jar. I think that is key. Yeah,
maybe that's one for the next army then.
Oh yeah, there's always a next army. So.
Yeah,
always.
Now on to the next project. Again, we're returning to one by Board Snores.
Board Snores, you say?
Yes, Board Snores, as opposed to extravagant, excited snores. So, and they were also looking at some Nurgle earlier, but for today they posted an update for the night they were working on, and they broke out their airbrush, and it's a brand new airbrush that they recently bought because they have quit smoking for 2 months and were able to afford it. So very well done to Board Snores.
That's one way of doing it, certainly.
Yeah, they've done.
Quit smoking because it stunts your growth.
Wait, maybe I should have started it then. Maybe it could only have had the opposite effect on me. Well, they've also done a bit of work on their cultists there. As we can see, I think again they're making use of the contrast paints.
I think it's a mixed bag. So there's some regular, some spray primers, and some contrast. So yeah, it's a touch of whatever I need to get the job done, kind of thing. So.
And here we have a couple of the demons they're working on, where they said that they used some tips from yourself and Robert.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like me. Well, it does sound like Robert, mind you.
Yeah, if I can just find... where was it? Yeah. I'm also carrying on with Jerry and Robert's advice with the different tones. So I've got some different Plague Bearers. This was done by the usual white primer, then green wash, then Plague Bearer flesh.
That kind of makes sense, yeah.
It looks very effective, especially this guy on the end, I would say.
Yeah, he's just one step away from getting a wash from the looks of things.
Yeah. And then their wife also got involved while they were watching the quiz last night, which I hope you all tuned in for. No. They started work. So their wife has started working on this Space Marine. I think they're going to be painting up a couple of those over the weekend.
Devastator. It's always nice to get kith and kin involved, and that's a fantastic luminous elephant covered.
Oh yeah,
to keep everything nice and clean.
I think we all need one of those.
Yeah. Dump the grim dark. Rock out the neon elephants. I'm all for that.
Have you been keeping an eye on this one, Dylan?
Yeah, I really like this one. I especially like that the cultists are actually beastmen and Genestealer cultists with Nurgle stuff on them. I really like those.
I hadn't noticed that there was a Genestealer cult stuff going on among them.
Yeah, it's mix and matches. So they've got some. They look like they're using the Ungor bodies, which would make sense because they're smaller than the Bestigor, and then it means the human-sized head onto the Ungor isn't as jarring. Whereas if they'd use the larger, it's not Bestigor, the Gore, actually, just the regular mid-sized Gore, having the little head would look like a golf ball on a tee type of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a really nice blend as well. I do still think that there should be a guy leading them in an Imperial breastplate, because I'm just so fond of the old abhuman units that the Imperial Guard used to have.
I've never seen those, actually. I've heard tell of them in ancient lore, but I've never seen the originals.
Well, eventually you get to the point where you just can't keep pushing humans into the front line, not when you've got all these beastmen that you can push into the front line first, and then send the humans in. So it's good.
We are seeing more of a return of the Beastmen to the 40k lore, with both the Beastman character in Necromunda, and of course a couple of them have started turning up in the Tzeentch units and Chaos units.
Now there's no reason to leave them out. They're all there. It's a big glorious universe filled with terrible gribbly things.
Yeah.
And then there's also Chaos.
Okay, if we move on, we have just a quick update from Dark Denegan's Militarum Tempestus unit. So they're saying that it looks like they may actually be finishing the troops for this.
Yeah, I seen this morning. I also seen this little homage to our lovable Lloyd as well. So that was quite nice.
Oh yes, if we scroll down here,
he's showing the bum off.
The best angle on the flag.
I absolutely love that flag.
They've done a great job of getting the texture on that.
It's just the shading and highlighting on it is just terrific. And as he says himself, that's a better flag. I wish that had been the front of the flag and not the rear of the flag.
Oh, that's always frustrating when you know you've painted one side better than the other.
I think the other side's equally good. I think he's less impressed with the sculpting on the front because it's that sort of Scully thing.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's a bit dull, but just like a nice, simple Imperial Eagle that people can follow.
Yeah, there's less room for all that texture shading and.
Yeah.
What did you think of this this one, Dylan?
I really like the color scheme with the black and red. That's very it's very Spec Ops in 40k.
Yeah, it's incredibly striking.
Yeah, it's really nice, really nice.
There was one other photo I did want to quickly show off here. Of course, that's them sporting the T-shirt with pride at a rocking party.
That's yeah.
Definitely the coolest person there.
I imagine so. 100%. Why would you not? That's why we ended up in the bar last night and I realised I was still wearing my jerry can t-shirt. Do I look like the worst person in the world? Who's that fellow walking in here with a picture of himself on his own chest? And it's like,
you're
me.
You're either a bit of a git or a superhero.
Yeah, probably a bit of a get. I think is generally the way, but
okay. Now we're moving on to the next project, which you may recognize, Dylan. It's from someone called LSR 2590, but we're just going to skip past it.
Oh, I guess fair enough.
Okay, do you want to take us through your project? What was your thinking on this?
So I saw you guys put a stream up, and I think like 5 minutes before the applications closed, I'm like, I'll just start doing this Twitch thing. So I grabbed literally the first thing I saw, which was Lord Felthius and his Terminator retinue.
Yeah, the happiest Terminator.
Lord Chuckles.
Lord Chuckles. That should be his official name on this.
Pretty sure it is.
I see you've actually put in a few more pictures since we last looked at this. I love this one with all the vials hanging from their back.
Yeah, the guy whose name I keep looking up but can't remember. But he was really fun to paint.
Okay. Now these were all from the Conquest magazine, weren't they?
Yep. All my Death Guard stuff's from the Conquest magazines and the in the starter set.
What made you want to go with such a bright and vibrant color scheme for these? Because usually we see Nurgle, and like we were talking about earlier, Nurgle tends to be very muted palettes.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go completely the other way with them?
I paint most of the stuff I paint's historical stuff, and you sort of got to behave a little when you paint historical stuff. You can't go too crazy. And so when I saw the Nurgle stuff, I'm like, I'm going to make this as cartoony as possible, but still look good. So I tried to go as like really bright highlights on really dark shading areas and really make them jump out.
Yeah, it certainly does that. Stark, I think, is the word at the very least. Very, very stark.
Have you found it a bit of a... Has it been a welcome change to paint something so bright next to your usual historical fare?
Oh yeah, bright and big. These are much bigger than the 15mm paratroopers I'm working on, or even Perry miniature stuff. It's much nicer.
This has been one of my favorite projects actually, just because this is something I'm trying to move towards with my own painting, is trying to get those brighter colors.
Yeah.
I'm trying to move away from everything looking very muddy. So seeing this is just fantastic. That one with all the vials has got to be my favorite, because that is just a riot of color going on.
And I'm sure every single one in there is something healthy.
Oh yeah,
especially that one with the
it's
skull.
all
health tonics, all of them.
Definitely the one.
it's all
with
good
the skull.
stuff.
Okay, next up we have one from Razraya.
Yeah, sure.
Razraya.
Let's say that's
Yeah,
that.
Razraya.
Yeah.
They've got a picture of a cat, and they're looking at their Warhammer 40k Conquest Challenge. Now, they and their friends challenge themselves to paint up all the models from the Conquest series, like yourself was doing there. They haven't been updating much over the weekend. I think they started this project back in May, but I did want to just quickly show this off because it's a great... First of all, they've done a fantastic job on the painting, but it is a good contrast with your own approach, Dylan. Because again, we've got these fantastic Death Guard models, but once again, we're more on the muted tone.
Thank you.
What was that, sorry?
No, we're fine. You keep talking. We've got our own show going in the background.
Yeah, me and Jerry are just running this,
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah. What do you think of this set?
It's really cool. I like the way they've done the flesh. That's something I really struggled with coming up with an idea for, and they've nailed it. Yeah, love the purple.
I love it. I love the little touches, things like the mushrooms on the bases that they've hand sculpted, so it looks like they broke out of their green stuff from Milliput or something like that, and made little.
Oh, I didn't see those.
Oh, they're lurking on the back. If you can see, like vibrant green.
Oh yeah, I see them now.
There's
Yeah.
normally some sort of shroom springing up. Now, whether they're leaving shrooms in their wake, like some sort of diseased orc, I'm not sure. But even just simple things like that, because it's a relatively simple basing scheme that's consistent throughout it with that Martian red. Weirdly, I was telling you yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
Having the nice poppy red on the bottom, because everything else is so grimy, dark, dirty, and dingy. And other things starting with D, dishwasher. So yeah, it's really nice to see. You've got that really noticeable contrast. You've got the theme on the base as well, but it still looks like they've slimed their way over it. Yeah,
That's very nice.
Is this? Do you have any plans for your own basing?
My basing is ridiculously simple. It's just sand with green grass on it. That's all I do.
That's the way.
That's fine. Okay, we've got one last project here I wanted to talk, and I believe this one is your project, Jerry.
Kind of, sort of, ish. Yes. Discuss. Disgusting. Maybe. When we started the run up to the week, I threw out a little call out in the backstage forum of what people wanted to see for this hobby weekend. Was there anything in particular? And somebody, and I want to say it was Gent, actually, who was on with us yesterday, said, how do people go about starting a project, or what are the sort of things they think about when they're starting a project? And we haven't really touched on that. And I thought after this weekend's finished, people may be inspired to get wired in there, as we say, in Nernard, and start their own projects. And there are various ways to go about it. A lot of people will pick up something like, now this is the last edition, I do have the new edition, but the last edition of the Codex Eldar, and they will go, oh, they're all green and black on the front, and they're all green and black on the boxes, and I'll do them all green and black. But, and that's perfectly valid. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's perfectly valid. But if you want to go for something different, how do you go about it, or where do you get your ideas, or what do you want to do with your theme? So I threw this out a couple of years ago and then haven't really gone anywhere with it, but it shows part of the process that I go through when I'm trying to come up with an idea for something to be a bit different. And this is my drow in space, like pigs in space. But
drowish. Drow. With your amazing Photoshop work.
Yeah, Lloyd, beware. My Photoshop ability is amazing on that intro. So the first thing I want to do is, anytime anybody talks about the Dark Eldar, they have this, they're immortal, they're the ones who fell during the fall. They've been alive for ages, but they're constantly having to do things to themselves to keep themselves alive. So I didn't want to just do pale skinned. And I was hoping around on Tinterweb, and if you look at the first picture, not that picture, that one, I came across a picture of somebody painted one of the Lamians like a drow from Dungeons and Dragons, where they're essentially dark elves. They've got a greyish ashen skin and white hair, and I went, oh, that's different, because all my Eldar are lovely elf skin and blonde hair, blue-eyed. This might be something interesting. I quite like the red and bone armor they went with. So after that, I started trolling the internet. Now, some of these pictures appeared in White Dwarf. Some of these pictures are online from various people's collections. And it was a case of going, right, well, that red and bone is quite a good contrast. So if I wanted to do a unit of executioners, a unit of witches, a unit of Cabalite warriors, whatever it happened to be, what way would I use that combination of colors on them? This one, the two big long army pictures, you don't need to zoom in on them, because the armies themselves I don't care about, because they don't match the color scheme I'm going to go for. But the vehicles, that's what I was going, oh, that's an interesting combination where I take sections and that white would actually be a bone in my own. So you can scroll down to find there's a quite nice jet bikes that somebody's done.
I would say these are the shields, you see the ones you're going for there.
So this idea of having the jet bikes with a possibly a unit where the leader only gets the bone and the rest of them are all just in the red. So after that, I then broke out and actually built 2 models. And they may even be lurking somewhere in that, but if they're not, I've got them here in front of me anyway.
Here they are.
Yeah, there we go. So test models. And this is this thing I was talking about where I very quickly built them and then sprayed them a bone color through an airbrush. And then just, first of all, I started throwing paints on to see what colors of red worked. So the first red I put down didn't cover particularly well. Didn't give me the effect I was after. So I ended up going for, I think, a flat red rather than red gore. That was my initial test. And then I picked out a sort of a brownish grey, a warm grey from scale 75, I think. But anyway, so the thing about when you're doing something like this and you're doing a test model is not, you don't need these to be 100% accurate to the finished paint job. I just need to see, does the color palette work? If I've decided to go with armor's bone and all the leather is red, so the people who have less red on them, does it still contrast well? Do the colors I'm choosing, do they match well? So these were literally painted the flat colors and then I threw a brown wash over the whole thing to give it some sort of shading, and then I go, okay, I've got to this step. My next question is, am I going to do the weapons a bronze or a silver? How will they contrast? Well, I haven't tried these yet on these.
I think the bronze would contrast really well with that.
That's what I'm thinking myself. But then at the same time, as I was talking about in one of the other chats, having spot colors are good. So because everything is quite red, bone, that sort of muted thing, having the bronze in might not pop enough, but having a really silver, having like a mithril shining steel might pop a bit more, or maybe even go for metallic colors, so metallic green, metallic purples, because they exist and they don't get out often enough these days.
Metallic green would be a nice.
So these are the sort of things. With these, I mean, one of these witches is actually a one of the crew of a one of the ships. Actually, I think like a raider that I just stuck on the base so that I could try the witch scheme out without having to start clipping off the sprue. But the thing about these are, they're plastic, they're great. There are various ways to strip miniatures. Biostrip, simple green, Dettol, methylated spirits, whatever it happens to be. If you go on the interwebs and go, how do you strip miniatures, you'll get dozens of answers. And I can go back and go, you know what, bone and red, not doing it for me. Or maybe I don't want to go for the dry skin after having tried these out. And I'm not wasting anything with these. These can be dipped and stripped and then repainted when I've actually come up with a colour scheme. And sometimes when I'm picking an army that isn't a genuine out-of-the-book army or a historic army that I've got something to follow, when I'm painting something for fantasy or for science fiction, I might go through multiple iterations. Some people I know are very good with Photoshop and will take pictures or will find things online and then we'll start going, oh, see that red leather? If I click and click again, it will turn to a purple and we'll have shading on it and stuff, and they can do that. I can't. I'm very old school and analog in that respect. But finding things online that give you the inspiration, and it might not even be pictures of these miniatures. There was another setup, which was actually a set of Rackham Inquisitors who were in a very similar bone and red leather color scheme, which is probably what triggered it in my mind at some point because I'd seen them in passing. And this is the sort of thing you should look for if you've got a particular comic or film or book or whatever it happens to be. I mean, the Legion of the Dragon from Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. They've got a very distinct description. Now, there's never a picture in there, but it tells you they wear a double-breasted
purple thing with dragons on the...
with a dragon running straight down the middle and like a blue, that the jacket itself is like a surge blue. I'm going, well, that sounds fantastic. So getting something like that and getting your mind going, well, if I wanted to do that on an Imperial Guardsman or on a whatever it happens to be for whatever game it is you're playing, and then just start hunting and looking for bits of inspiration, bits of various bits and bobs like that you can go, oh, that would be great. Like I mentioned Killzone.
Yeah.
When I seen Dark Dan, whatever way he wants to pronounce it, it's up to him. No name shaming. But when I seen that, I went, oh, it's very Killzone-esque. No, it's probably not, but that's what instantly came into my mind. And it's these sort of things are, when you're getting into a project, have I think they call them mood boards. Yeah, where you just collect pictures and images and color schemes and swatches and whatever it happens to be, and you can just start putting them together. And you can have that little, group, especially in the project system here, where you can start throwing stuff in. And sometimes you can throw it in, and you can ask the question, I'm thinking about this as a color scheme. What do people think? Now, in some cases, you won't get answers back you like. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Or sometimes you get this little genius comment that will just send you on a completely different path. But that's one of the big things for me, for when you're trying to, as Warren would say, game in the gaps, is to look for those things that are outside the normal. If everybody sees AdMech as silver robot bionic people with red robes on, and then you see people like we have it this weekend going for purples and bones and all of these sort of things, I think it's fantastic. I was talking to somebody and they were talking about doing the robes grey. And immediately I thought, well, what if you reverse then? So if you were to think of non-metallic metals, if the bionics would normally be silver/grey and the robes are red, if you're now doing the robes grey instead, how about doing the metallics in a reddish, like a copper metal, or that, so
that's cool.
Just flip it around and see how that sort of goes. And you can come up with some really interesting combinations that people haven't seen before, and you can get really stunning results where people go, oh my god, I wish I'd done that, or I'm so stealing that idea, which you see quite a lot. I know mostly you do historics yourself, Dylan, but when you're cracking about with things like this, is that the sort of way you deal with concepts, or do you have some other go-to?
When I did a custom guardsman regiment, I think it's in the project somewhere for the spring cleaning challenge.
Yeah.
And that was like that was basically I just had looked at a bunch of these Zouave miniatures that I had, and I thought, I can make guardsmen out of them, and I sort of mucked around with different heads and different weapon options, and eventually I came up with just a simple head swap and a bit of snip of the gun. But like my 40k Primera stuff, like this Space Marine chapter's been in my head for 10 years. We used to hang out at the local Games Workshop, and I remember very clearly we'd go get pancakes for lunch and all talk about our Space Marine chapters. So this is a 10-year-old idea that's just finally come to the surface.
See, it does take a while sometimes, but everything ends up being used eventually.
Yeah. Okay.
Never go to waste. Don't buy anything.
Very much so.
We've had a few things in the chat. Taurus60 is saying that medieval heraldry is always good for color combos. That's a very good point.
Oh,
yeah. And Dark Donegan's chimed in. Try Danigun or Danigun, something like that.
Let's call you DDN.
DDN. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's mostly us for this little saunter through. Dylan, it's been a pleasure. We'll let you get to bed.
Awesome.
Thanks very much for joining us, mate.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
And thank you, guys. We're going to move on here. We've got a Q&A coming with Thomas and with AJ later on. And don't forget to keep updating your projects. We'll be looking at those before the close of play for some of the digital ticket holders to see who's won those kits. And we'll be back with you again soon.
Hello and welcome to our live Q&A with AJ and Thomas. How are you guys doing?
Very well.
Very well, absolutely. Had a blast this weekend.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend so far, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you been up to much hobbying? Well, of course I know you have, because we've got the we've got the evidence of your hobbying here, Thomas.
It was almost the biggest part of it was built. This is something for my Eldar. You might not notice it, but it's like a dragon with a. I will turn it into a, what's it called? A fire prism.
So it's based on the Maw Crusher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Affectionately known as the War Cabbage.
Yeah, you know, that's the best name for it I can think of. Yeah,
because whenever the wings now, Thomas has done a lovely job of kind of making it a bit more dynamic. But whenever it's sort of traditionally built, it's got this kind of cabbage-like look, hasn't it?
The second one will be built like that, because I also will need one for a falcon, probably. So the second one will be built like the cabbage. I did the first one, did some more heavy converting on it, because I know that when it comes to the second one, I can't be arsed to actually do all that work anymore, so I want to have that out of the way before starting on the second one. Yeah. It's what I usually do when I start converting. Put all your effort into the first models, because you know that your enthusiasm will run out while you go further into the army. But yeah, I've been struggling with this one for quite a lot of time at the moment. I want to do something with it. So the idea is that there will be a guy in the front.
One very brave person.
Yeah, there should be some kind of a cockpit, something where the driver can stand, while the guy who's managing the beastie can stand. And in the back here, that was a suggestion that AJ did. I want to have the gunner hanging off of it, like in a Viper jet bike, something like that. Like he's really hanging off of it and gunning people down.
That would be really cool.
I think I'm most looking forward to seeing the next one as well, because I want to see how you get the transport capacity.
Very easy. That will be leather straps on the back.
Oh, okay, cool.
So they're just hanging on. They're literally hanging on of the...
Harlequins will be a good one for that, because they're all models hanging off the sides of things.
So that's
quite cool.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, this is a Q&A. If you have any questions about the 40k lore for AJ, or for any modeling tips for Thomas, or anything that can combine the two, please join us on the Twitch live chat, and I am monitoring it here. I'll read out your questions to the guys. Now, I know you have one question for Thomas over to kick us off.
Yes, so we were discussing just before we came on air about what would be an interesting modeling experiment to do, because there isn't, if there's something in the 40k lore that there isn't a model for, and something that I've always wanted to see is an Orc Prime. Now, I don't know if you're aware of an Orc Prime. An Orc Prime is essentially orcs don't stop growing. So throughout their lifespan, they continue to grow. And as they gain followers, as they become knobs, that's why knobs are a bit bigger. No pun intended. That's why knobs are a bit bigger.
Keep it together, Thomas.
And then when they go into War Boss, they become even larger. If we look at Gazgul, for example, he's quite a large model. Probably a bit small compared to modern models, but at the time when he was released, he was quite huge. And beyond that, there is also this Orc Prime. Now, there's one example of an Orc Prime in the 41st Millennium that's widely known, and that was the Beast. And the Beast, coming from the Beast Arises series of books, was essentially the leader of a massive Wa that had happened throughout the Imperium. It was sort of around Millennium 32, I think. Millennium 32, just after the Horus Heresy. The Imperium was starting to get back on its feet. It wasn't really thinking about the orcs too much, because they weren't really a major concern at that time. But this war boss, who even since hasn't been surpassed, started to gain create this galaxy spanning Wa, and that's what happened. So I'd love to see a model that represents this Orc Prime. The interesting thing about the Orc Prime is that it's not just large. It's not just kind of this massive beast that controls by its brute force. It's also, as it gets larger, it also seems to become more cunning and more tactically
able and think more about logistics and stuff like that there as well. So it's not just the Hulk in orc form.
Yeah.
It's also this quite an intelligent being.
Okay.
So how would you go about making that, Thomas?
I would start by having a cup of tea to think about it. Something like that. I always start with a basic model. So it's easier to do that when you can start with a basic model.
Okay.
There isn't, well, from a quick scan through my mind, there isn't that much in the 40k range you could use. You can use a lot of the demons. So there's the Greater Demon of Khorne, the Bloodthirster.
Yeah.
You could use, you have to file off all the Khorne iconography. Words. And you have to do something else for the head, of course, but he does have the bulk, he does have the girth.
Yeah.
You could go for a great and clean one. Because that's the other way to go, like he's pretty fat. He's cunning but fat, something like that. So you could go either way. You could go have a look at other ranges. I know War Machine have got a couple of gargantuan trolls, which are like this big. I know John once did one.
Yes.
So you could use that to start from. There will be a lot of green stuffing, of course, because you have to sculpt certain things yourself. You can get away, especially with orcs, you can get away with a lot of mechanical bits. So if you put them in armor, the difficult thing to sculpt is everything that is flesh and body parts. That's difficult to sculpt. So you try to camouflage them as much as possible. If you take an orc and he's got gauntlets on, a gauntlet can be more easily modeled with just pieces of plastic art and everything. You don't have to use any green stuff. So you can build that up a lot easier. You can use stuff like Tau armor plates or something like that. You could use that. You can do also kind of things with armor that make it a lot easier on yourself. If you can give him a big helmet, for example, you don't have to sculpt his head. Which is an easier one to do than sculpting a head. You could even do the head of a Gorkanaut or a Morkanaut. What's it called? You got like the smaller,
the
big stomper,
those,
maybe.
The big stomper.
Oh, no, that would be too big. Yeah.
What I would do if you go for that is what I think would be cool if you would use him as a mobile weapons platform. So just like a Stompa, have him really big shouldered and put some kind of a howdah on him. With Gretchen hanging off of him, firing their own guns while he is wading into battle. That would be really cunning.
That would be really cool.
That would be
actually
excellent.
Thinking about that. Maybe something like an Imperial Knight might be a good place to start for the shape, because it's kind of maybe not the arms and things like that there, but the general shape would kind of fit with where the head is and stuff like that there, and those big armored pads.
Absolutely. What you do need is some of the flesh looking through. Because if it's completely mechanical, you won't see that he is an Orc Prime. Because you do have to have that basic shape in there that I would say human shape, but that musculature has to be in there.
So actually a Bloodthirster and a Knight would probably work quite well together to get those arms.
Work very well.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got a few questions coming in. First one from a roaring bag for you, AJ. Not really something I need, but maybe where do one start with the lore if they're first dabbling their toes into 40k, since it's such a vast universe?
That's a really tough question. There's a couple of ways that I would sort of say might be a good way in. First of all, the rulebook actually gives you a good example of the universe. There's timelines. There is a galactic map. It kind of gives you a really good overview of what's happening and what has happened as well. That's a really, really good way. If you wanted to look down the Black Library sort of route, I would maybe recommend actually. You could go one of two ways about it. You could maybe start with something like the Horus Heresy and then get a basic understanding of the how the Imperium was, and then start to read something like maybe something along the lines of the what's the name of it? The oh, it's just escaped me. There's a couple of Graham McNeil Ultramarines books.
Yeah.
That might be a good introduction. But I know they focus primarily on the Ultramarines. But from the point of view of getting an overview of how the Space Marines operate, they're really good books. The other option you might have is something like, if you want to look at how civilians exist in the Imperium, something like the Ravener series, or the Eisenhorn series, which recently has just been announced is going to get a
TV show,
a TV show, which would be really, really exciting.
Cool.
As well. And I think as well that's been a really clever pick for people that might not be used to the 41st millennium, because it's not too sprawling.
Yeah.
The stories are quite concise. It's going to be almost detective-y in kind of a detective show, almost in feel. But at the same time, we're going to get that real 40k feel and experience, I think, from that show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably say if you're going to start with the lore, the rulebook's a great option. If not, then maybe something like the Horus Heresy. Having said that, though, the Horus Heresy was quite late into the sort of the creation of the 41st, the Warhammer sort of backstory. That those books only came out, maybe, was it 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. So certainly when I was first starting out, none of that existed. So all that story was kind of hearsay, and there was wee snippets here and there. But it is really good to kind of get a feel. You really start, once you start to read the Horus Heresy, you get to sort of see how desperately awful the 41st millennium and the 42nd millennium really are.
It is one of the things I think, for me, it feels like there's two kinds of lore in 40k. You've got like the overarching story. This is how the Imperium was started. This is shiny Space Marines, and this is how they got their first founding, and that's really cool. But it's up there, really.
Yeah.
And then you get, as you say, the Eisenhorn series, which is really down and gritty, dirty down and gritty, and I like that. That's the flavor of the. That's a completely different flavor of kind of story, because it's not the high shiny Space Marines, but it's really about how you or I as a grunt would live in that millennium, and I like those two combined.
Definitely, and I think that's what Dan Abnett does really, really well, in that he shows the real what it is like to live in the 41st millennium, or the 42nd now. What's interesting as well is that most citizens or most human beings would never have seen a Space Marine. They're not that common, even though there's maybe a couple of million of. If you think of it, how rare it would be to see 1 million of something even on our planet, on our single planet.
You're not likely to walk into a Space Marine on his way to the shops.
No, you're very unlikely. So that
bags.
So it's really interesting to sort of think
new sculpting challenge for you: Space Marine on his way back from Tesco's
with his bags for life. But yeah, so I mean, that's something to bear in mind when you're thinking about the 41st. Even though the stories that we read are all about the Space Marines and the kind of these kind of high lords of Terra and that kind of stuff, there is those elements of that guy who's just going to work every day, who's going to the Minotaurium and having to clock in and clock out at the end of the day.
I think that side of things is very important when you're looking at a universe as vast as, especially for the grimdark genre. If we go back to like the grandfather of grimdark, Alan Moore, and his comic Watchmen, even amongst all this thing with the superhero community going on, it would cut away to just this normal kid and a newspaper seller periodically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that showed you the impact. Okay, one here for you from Radagast6. Because your bases are so epic, what issues do you have using them in games? And it is true. If we look at this one, the base is incredible.
I have no issues whatsoever. My opponents sometimes do have issues with it. It's a question I've been asked a lot of time. It's really easy for me. I want them to look good. Period. In fact, some of the epic bases make it easier to play with them, because if you look at that guy, he is standing so far above the battlefield that you can just put anything against that model without it touching any part of the model. So it makes it actually easier to to put them on the battlefield and to play with them. But sometimes you have an issue with that you can't position a model exactly where you want it to be. I've always got a few spare bases in my bag anyway that I can pop on the table, put there instead of the thing I want there, put a proxy base in there, and it's pretty easy to solve it. But I've run it not too many times, especially in 40k, which is where there's more shooting than combat anyway. So than hand-to-hand combat anyway. You rarely get into the real problem of positioning your models one against the other.
Yeah. I think what's really great about the current edition of 40k actually is the fact that there is no longer facings for vehicles, and that has taken away a lot of the issues of being able to model things. So, for example, it would have almost been impossible to get the facings for our fire prism here. I mean, it already was because of the shape of a fire prism. You know, there was always arguments, but with this, you know, now we don't have that issue. We don't have to think about that, and we can just go for the maximum effect with the model, which ultimately is giving you a much better gaming experience.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, another one from Aurora in Bag. How do you incorporate lore into your builds, and what can be easily accomplished by beginners? I know this is one you've talked about on the Weekender in the past.
I think there's two ways to go about it. His way and my way. Yeah, probably. The first way is you start with the lore. So you have read something about the lore, and you will be able to tell more about that. But it's like the Orc Prime or something like that. You read something and you're thinking like, I want to put this on the table. How am I going to put this on the table? Okay, you're going to make the conversion. You're going to build an army around it. So you say like, okay, that Orc Prime, he's got a giant war with him. What would he have with him? What kind of troopers would he get around him? Something like that. And you build from that. The alternative would be to just go for, I think this looks cool, and now I'm going to look for a way to incorporate this into the lore. We've seen the army of Chris, I think his name is, with the Tau who are stranded on a planet.
Chris
and all
Caesar.
And all of a sudden, AJ here is talking about it and saying like, yeah, you can incorporate it like this or like that. So you can do it both ways. I
like to do sometimes models that I create are from kind of coming from the lore, saying, oh, that was in that book and I've never seen it. So for example, when I was doing the Imperial Guard troop trucks and stuff, I was reading a lot of Gaunt's Ghosts, and they were talking about cargo 4s and cargo 8s and these kind of troop trucks. I thought, I want to see one of those, and then I found Dave Taylor's conversions and thought, yeah, I'm gonna make those. But then other times it is, as you say, you kind of just can come about them conversions in other ways and fit the lore. So for example, I built little sentinels with tracks many years ago, and the way I justified this was, well, the first reason that I built them with tracks as little kind of small vehicles with tracks was because I was always being very clumsy and breaking the legs. So I thought, how am I gonna reuse these models? So I just built them with tracks. And then I thought, well, how am I going to justify this within my Imperial Guard sort of structure? And I thought, well, what about the Guard regiment that has the homeworld that they're from maybe has fallen out with the local sector's producer of Forge World, or maybe producer of walking technology. And because technology is quite rare in the 41st millennium, maybe that's why they've kind of just had to sort of rig it themselves to be on tracks. So there's always a way. Well, I mean, that's what's great about the universe, is that there's always a way to find a fit for something. And as you said about the Tau earlier, you know, he already had come up with that backstory based on something that was historical, and then we can find a way to make that fit within the lore.
And GW leaves place for that. Like
definitely,
there's a lot of chapters that you have never heard about.
With the Indomitus Crusade, we have the Grey Shield, so there's, you know, countless chapters of Primaris that we can kind of just create, because there's the space, as you say, there's the space for it.
I think we need a return of the Rainbow Warriors, personally.
Yeah. Oh yes, definitely. There's always room for Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah, always. Okay, one from Captain Italia. AJ, I've heard that now that the lore has progressed, apparently the planet Krieg is under siege from orcs. I've been out of the game for a little while and wondered if you could fill me in.
Oh, I hadn't heard that
I
myself.
think you and I can go get a cup of tea.
I hadn't heard that myself. However, I can imagine that Krieg are very, very happy about this, because that means lots of trenches and lots of fighting and lots of opportunity to die gloriously. You know, I must research that. I hadn't heard that myself, but I must research that.
I don't know much about the Death Corps or Krieg. What's their whole deal?
So they're quite an interesting group, because they essentially kind of want to die gloriously in battle. They
run forward, spray paint their teeth, and yell, "Witness me!"
Kind of, yeah. They started. The planet Krieg was at one time very kind of verdant and was a great supplier of minerals and things to the Imperium. But what happened was there was a betrayal. They refused to fight as part of the Imperium's armies, and the planet was virus bombed. They kind of had a bit of a falling out with a bit of a serious falling out.
A bit of a falling out. Let's virus bomb that.
They had a tiff.
The most understated way of
a bit of a falling out.
But actually, it was the Krieg themselves that did it. They were annoyed at the kind of ruling classes, and they kind of cut off their nose to spite the face, so to speak. And since then, they have been searching to atone for the great betrayal of the Imperium by seeking out a glorious death for the Imperium. And that's why they specialize or focus on wars of attrition, kind of forlorn hopes, suicide missions. They're a bit grim, so they are as a people, and that's kind of where their kind of backstory. That's why they ended up, for example, on Vrax.
That actually reminds me a bit in the old lore behind the back with the old hammer dwarf slayers, where even if you had a whole army of dwarf slayers, even if you were completely wiped from the table, you could claim victory because that's what they wanted.
yeah, exactly. They wanted a glorious death, didn't they?
Yeah. Okay. Now we have one for you, Thomas. Assassin Red 42 asks, they've never actually made a custom miniature using like green stuff. What kind of advice would you give for someone whose first time it is working with this?
A couple of things. First of all, use the right tools. So tools are extremely important with green stuff. I didn't bring them with me, but use the right tools. So like sculpting tool, a metal sculpting tool is what you need. You also need plastic sculpting tools like clay shapers. For the backstage members, there's a lot of videos where I explain that, but they're like little plastic brushes that you can use with tips on them. It makes it a lot easier to work with the green stuff because it works smoother.
They almost look like the rubber on the end of a pencil, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. So that's important to have those. The second advice I always give is water. You have to use a lot of water when using green stuff because it sticks like hell when it's soft. So always keep your tools well lubricated. Then
I could see the grins breaking out there.
Sorry, guys. I couldn't keep it. Be happy that I didn't tell you to use Vaseline to use your tools lubricated, because that's what you actually do. No, but that's what you actually do. You use Vaseline with green stuff. Absolutely.
I read an article years ago by a sculptor called Chris Fitzpatrick, and he had sculpted some of the early Dark Eldar stuff. And he said that what he did quite often was he used the grease from his forehead.
What?
It sounds kind of gross, but it actually, when you do that there, and you kind of, particularly in here, it's quite warm. When you do that, you can kind of feel a little bit of grease, and it stops it's sticking to you.
Yeah. So there you
go. Two more advices, because this is an important one, I think. First one, make sure that you've got a basis to work on. So always pin everything. If you want to have something sticking out from your model, be sure that there's a pin in there to grab onto, because the green stuff itself isn't solid enough to stand on its own. And most of all, build it up in layers. So take your time. It's the same as painting. When you paint, you wait for the first layer to dry before you put on the second layer, and before you put on the third layer, you always let it dry. You do the same thing with green stuff. So instead of, if I can take this one here as an example, if you take that wing, for example, I had to sculpt some bits of that wing. The first thing I did was I put a pin in there to give it the general structure, to give it the solidity for that piece of green stuff there. Then I put on a small coat of green stuff, like thin enough to have more of a frame, and then I put the texture on it. So it's in 3 steps that you do that. When you're sculpting a miniature, you can even go in more steps. But with the first part first, then the second one, then the third one. And look at YouTube videos. It's the way I've always done it.
Specifically, some of our backstage tutorial videos.
Those are really simple when compared to some of the other stuff out there. But when a miniature is sculpted, they start with a wireframe. They then put the general bulk on it, so the muscles. Then they put the clothes on there. Then they build up the armor that's on there. So it really goes into steps, and between each step you have to wait preferably 24 hours for it to let it cure, to work further on it. And that's the way it goes easier.
Okay.
Can I ask just where you put the pins in the likes of something as big as the gap in the wings? Sorry, it's just on the other. Oh, it's there.
This side here?
Whereabouts would you actually put the pins?
I put one. Oh, let me show you. So somewhere there.
So about here.
One in this side, one in that side, and you bend it.
Oh, together.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You
So you almost
together.
use it like a rib cage.
Yeah.
To get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Ah, pretty cool. Okay, one here for you, AJ. I'm looking forward to hearing your answer in this. Where are the squats now? Given that Necromunda has one.
Reset the clock.
My feeling on the squats is so I think initially GW had just said they're gone, okay? Forget about it, guys, they're away. And their homeworlds were supposedly wiped out by Tyrannid invasion. That was kind of the easy solution to kind of get rid of them, you know. But I think where we're starting to see them is kind of these, obviously with spacefaring and that kind of stuff, there's obviously little bits scattered around. So I think that's why we're starting to see the odd one on Necromunda. I think they've become a bit of a curiosity. There was a suggestion, and it's never been proven, but the Demiurge were a race in 40k, particularly they were a type of ship released for Battlefleet Gothic, and they were released kind of in the early days of Forge World. They'd done a few Battlefleet Gothic ships for this race called the Demiurge, and it was suggested at the time that the Demiurge were squats. I'm not too sure if that's ever been kind of sort of definitely decided upon.
Well, did the ship have a giant bearded face stuck on the front?
No, it actually looked quite, but it was very angular. It was a very angular kind of ship, so it could have been something that they had. It was kind of it was maybe a very different look to what we considered squatty at the time. The other thing as well is that whenever they released the 8th edition, not the chapter proves, the early indexes, it was hinted at squats in that book. So there was mention of squat auxiliaries within the Imperial Guard or in the Astra Militarum. So it could be that there are still units and still regiments fighting for the Imperium of squats, because...
Yeah.
To be honest, I can't imagine them not releasing squats within this and a couple of years.
I do think they've sort of been trying to bring them. Yeah,
given the fact that the Sisters of Battle and everything they did with those, so I can't imagine that they are not going to release the squats again. They did the same with the Harlequins, made an entire army out of it, and especially with the new rules, you can have like small detachments. You don't have to have the entire army out of squats. You can just have a couple of squats like the Harlequins and then combine them with other forces.
That's it. And we've also got in AOS, in Age of Sigmar, there's the Caradron Overlord. So the kind of the style is already there, you know, and it's they've kind of proved with that it could work.
True.
So
okay, one more question for you here, Thomas. Do you ever, this is from Commodore Rob, do you ever get a mental block when doing conversions? And if so, how do you get over that?
I can't say lots of alcohol, can I? I get a mental block all the time. What usually gets me, this one for an example, as I said, I think this one has been on my shelf for 2 years now.
Whoa.
And I get sidetracked by other projects and everything, so there is that. But what usually blocks me is making something that can be reproduced. So it's easy to make a conversion like a one-off. But as I said, this one, I have to make a falcon out of the same model. So I want something that I can reproduce on the second or third or fourth one. And that's a difficult thing. You have to look at the kits you've got and see what parts can I use and how can I do it without having to buy four extra kits. Because if I need to buy, well, this is already 2 kits. It's a Falcon and a Fire Prism and a Maw Crusher that I need to buy for that.
Plus all the terrain as well.
Yeah, plus all the terrain. But yeah, true. But that's army wide. So, but you have to be able to. I like to be able to just combine 2 kits together so that you know that if I buy those 2. I can get this result. If I need to use parts from my bids box, for example, where I've just got 1 or 2 of them, then I can't reproduce that. And then the next time I need one of those for my army, I'm in trouble. So that's the biggest problem usually, to have something made out of the parts you've got and to make it easily reproducible.
I had that with whenever the Imperial Guard vehicles, the Astra Militarum vehicles changed from the way they used to be, where it was road wheels with tracks. I bulk bought lots of the track sprues because they're so customizable and usable, and I've just kept them kind of fully stocked for and I'm always afraid to use them on a project because it's like, oh, I might need those because I can't get them anymore, So that's it.
The way to get out of there, because that was the most important part of the question, of course, give it some time. Usually, put it on the shelf. I don't think there's anybody watching right now who has only got 1 army at home. If they are, please contact me and tell me how you do that, because I want to know this. This is a skill I do not have.
I think I have about 3 just in my flat and about 4 more back at my parents' place.
Exactly. And I hope my wife is not seeing this, but apart from that, because she knows I've only got 1 army for 1 game. No, you just start doing something else. Work on another army, for example. Play a bit with that. Work on another miniature. I was stuck with this one, so I started doing the jet bikes again. I'm thinking about what else to do, how to put a Wraith Lord in the army or something like that. So I'm thinking about other ways to get that creativity going again.
Well, Captain Natalia joined in on the comments there and said that they only have 1 army, to which I can only say, burn the witch. Well, actually, that whole concept of how do you recreate something?
Yeah. It's, by the way, for Captain Italian, he forgot to she forgot to mention yet. At the end.
Yeah.
And also, how big is that army?
Yeah,
because it might be a massive.
I've got an Imperium army with Imperial Guard in its basement. It's all 1 army. That's the way I tell it to my wife. Yeah,
that works. Yeah.
Kudos.
I've only got a Xenos army. That concept of how you recreate something leads on nicely for another question we have from Novus Templar. After working with a part with green stuff and additive parts, do you ever make molds of the parts and then cast it in resin? And if so, do you have a favorite resin to use?
Yeah, well, I've done that. Definitely the part that I struggled with for a long time was artillery wheels. The kind of like chalk. They're kind of like cast iron artillery wheels and things like that there, and they're such a very useful part. So I scratched one out of a bit of tubing and put plastic art in between and built it up that way and kind of wrapped the plastic art around then the outside. And then because I didn't want to do that every time, I thought I better cast this. I've never kind of gone beyond the 1-part casting. I've never done 2-part molds. I just can't get my head around it. But luckily for something like that there, the 2 halves are the same anyway, so you just cast 2 halves and glue it together, and that has saved so much time in the long run.
It's a skill I don't have.
Really?
It's a skill I just don't have. A really good friend of mine has actually given me stuff to make resin molds for my birthday. I think 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I have tried using it once, and it was a complete failure. Probably because I wanted to make axe blades this big with a double-sided cast. So I, instead of just taking small steps, I went all the way from the first time, and then it didn't work. So I just forgot about it. But it's something I don't have the skill. I should develop that skill, but yeah, it's something I've never done.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's quite daunting when you look at it, you know. But certainly for a one-part mold, Lego's your friend. You can build your mold with Lego, and plasticine just seals it all nicely. I started off casting my own bases because I'd built my own kind of custom base, and I thought I don't want to replicate that, you know, kind of 50 times. So I just cast the base up, and because it's a flat bottom anyway, there was no messing around, there was no filing or anything, just popped out of the mold. The best thing to use is room temperature vulcanizing. So just basically it's a mold that cures at room temperature. So there's no kind of heating involved or anything kind of difficult. And that's usually, the silicone's usually sold as a sort of bucket of silicone and then a little tub of hardener, and it's usually 1:10 ratio. The resin took me a long time to get the right resin. There was a lot of really smelly resins out there. I remember one time we'd kind of just moved into a flat, and I decided, I'm gonna get the resin out, and opened the bottle for a second, and you know, when my girlfriend came home, she was just like, "What have you been doing? This place stinks." You know, some really horrible stuff out there. But generally, I find the two-part. It's exactly two-part, 50-50 split. So it's 1-to-1. You just pour half, sort of the same measure of the hardener as you do the resin. That's the easiest stuff to work with, and mostly it comes in mostly it's done by weight and not volume. So don't just say, well, that's about the same, and mix them together, because sometimes what happens is the heat reacts too much, and then you get more bubbles and stuff like that there. Generally it's if you do it 50-50, the stuff that's 1 part in 100, I wouldn't recommend at all, because it's so hard to get that exact, and then your molds end up sticky.
Because you're doing that in really small amounts anyway.
Yeah, if you're casting the side of a ship, then it might be easy, but certainly with the quantity that we're using. The other thing to consider is press molds with green stuff as well. I
did use that.
Yeah.
That one I did use.
And that's quite good.
Absolutely.
Well, Radagast has suggested that this could be a good topic for the next hobby lab, so get practicing. But actually, what Radagast did say is here's a good tropic for the next one, so maybe we could do hobby lab on the beach.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Not here though. It'd have to be somewhere.
Yeah, not today anyway. Yeah.
Can we get umbrella drinks?
Sorry?
Can we get umbrella drinks?
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. Well, out here you need the umbrella when you go to the beach. So yeah. Umbrella drinks mean something very different in
yeah,
it does.
I'm just thinking like that's not what they mean.
Okay. All that liquid sunshine here. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, I think that about wraps it up for us. AJ, Toss, thank you so much for coming and answering all these questions. We didn't even get to the meaning of life.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, there was a brief discussion in the chat about what the meaning of life was. Everyone agreed it was 42, but they couldn't agree what it was 42 of.
42 armies, I think.
There we go.
It's like, you know why it's 42, right?
Yeah, because it's the coding that meant as you will. Yeah, I'm a Douglas Adams nerd too. Yeah, I appreciate the t-shirt.
Yeah, I really love that
it's fantastic.
bit of information to know that. But
yeah, I know nothing about computers, so I can only hope it's true. Okay, yeah, we're going to carry on with the rest of the coverage of the last day of the 40k hobby weekend. Remember, while the hobby weekend is drawing to a close, the projects are eternal, as we have said. So please, join us on the project system, tag it with the 40k hobby weekend, and carry on your projects. We'd love to see how you develop the project you started this week and into the future. Okay, we're going to carry on and see what else we can find.
Hi folks, we're back again at the 40k hobby weekend, and I thought we'd just have a wee stroll through the area here and see what people have been up to and what they've managed to get done over this weekend. So we're actually going to start in this corner and see how Andy and George have been getting on, because he's been mostly staying very low to the ground, which means since Friday we haven't really bothered either of you. So you were doing quite well for quite some time.
I was dodging it, mate. Yeah, I managed to get away out the way of the big camera that goes around and spies on everybody.
Yeah, well, I've mostly been staying up against one of those walls as well, because then nobody can, especially the lip readers, you don't want them seeing what we actually talk about when the microphones aren't on. So how have you found it then? You've been using the contrast for Eldar.
Yeah, so use the Blood Angels Red. That's worked really well up to a point. Great for models. When you start getting onto the walkers, it gets a little bit blotchy. Then I've used, what's it called here? Athematic blue for the close. Well, of course, and power weapons. That's one coat on all the weapons and 2 coats on the loincloths, I suppose is the best way to describe it. They've come out quite well. I think the only thing that I'm not overly happy with is the white, Apothecary white. It's worked really well on the Wraith Guard, Wraith Blades helmets, but when you look at the Warlord, it's too blotchy. So what I've decided to do when I get back home, I'll break out the airbrush and we'll just blast it with a little bit of white just to get rid of some of that blotchiness. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with it. I've also first time used these technical paints for the gems, because normally I sort of paint, then highlight again, and then white dot. But the one on the top of the jet bike, that's come out really well. Really happy with that. Just getting used to that knack of one coat and draw it down, and hopefully it leaves a bit left. Otherwise it gets a bit streaky. And putting over a coat of silver as well, which was odd. I thought you'd stick it over white, but it works really well with the silver. It does give you that glint. So yeah, overall really happy, because I've got, I think it's about half a dozen gemstones left to do, and then they're done for the weekend, and that's the whole starter box.
That's impressive in itself to manage to get through it, and bar a few issues with the contrast. And you're right, it's one of those things where the contrast work really well with small surfaces or very detailed or ridged surfaces. When you've got large flat panels like his head or a tank or a vehicle, that's when you start running into the problems with the unusual drying, the patches, that type of thing. You
really got to watch it especially when you're doing that first base coat. I learned quite quickly when I was doing the trial models before I came here to focus on a panel, coat the panel really quickly so you didn't get any tide marks on it, and then while you're coating the next panel, watch the previous one, see how it's pooling, and if you didn't like it, then just with the tip of a wet brush, just draw off that excess. And it for the most part, I've sort of caught them all, but there's a couple that are, in an ideal world I would have sorted out a bit better.
But speed wise, getting a starter box set done in 2 days, say ish.
To my embarrassment, I've got more points of Eldar in this weekend than I actually physically have of Space Marines, and I've been collecting Space Marines since I was 16, and I'm now 50 years old. So that tells you something, doesn't it?
That's what the weekend's all about, is to shine a light on the grim corners of our hobby that we've sadly neglected for years. Anyway, well, no, it looks fantastic. I'm glad you managed to get the stuff fired out there. Yeah. We're going to move across here and see how George has got on, because we came to you many moons ago, and you were just telling us about what you were going to be working on, and you've ploughed through it rightly. How have you found the contrast yourself?
It's been pretty interesting on the regular Skitari, just on the cloaks and their like trouser things. It's been all right. Like it personally, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I still want to go over it a bit and do some more highlighting, because it is very dark. But on the Castellan robots, I think it's just a bit too. There
are in places bits where it's So here we've got it almost black, and this is something when we were doing some of the project talk in the other room, and we were talking about the contrast. It was this that I was talking about, where some of the darker pigments are so heavy that on flat panels they almost change the consistency and the color entirely. So it's one to watch out for when people are doing it. But you also did a bit of an interesting conversion at the start of the weekend using Age of Sigmar Throne, essentially. And it's been coming along great guns.
Yeah, he's been brilliant. I've sort of I did a trial on the silver on the regular Skitarii, and I sort of consigned myself that I am never going to finish all of these today. So I thought I might as well get on the my favourite one of the lot.
It really is a stunning piece of work, and it's at the same time it's ethereal, it's ghostly, it's weird, and it screams 40k. It looks like something that John Blanche, after a night on the cheese, would draw, because it has that blend of the surreal, the sublime, and the mechanical, which he was such a fan. Any man who draws a tap coming out of the side of a commissar's head would appreciate something like that.
Take that as a compliment.
As well you should. It's stunning. I really like it, and it was something that I was curious how it would end up whenever you went, I've got this undead throne that I want to use, and I'm never going to play Age of Sigmar, and I think it can work in this army. And you're going, can it though? Yes, it really can. It's a great bit of work there. So happy enough with the progress over the weekend. All in.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, normally I have about one miniature done every month and a half or so.
Right, you're a speed painter compared to me. I'm going to say nothing. I will let you tear on. It's been a pleasure anyway, and we'll catch up with you before we jaunt off to somewhere else. Oh, now, let's see how far I can make Sam walk. I think we go this way. There are people hiding in this very far corner who have been neglected because we didn't think we had the range to get the wire. Oh, no, look, see, people running for the hills. Ah. Oh, that was desperate altogether. Well, he has to come back in sooner or later. But we'll irritate yourself anyway, because you haven't been working through the painting, but you've been doing an awful lot of building and super detailing. How have you found yourself this weekend? Because I know Thomas has mostly been hovering by you.
Yeah, he's lots and lots of tricks. My goal for the weekend was to literally build the pile of plastic and Forge World. So I've 3 of the Custodes Dreadnoughts, 4 altogether. Land Raider, so that was just from the Talons of the Emperor, and then there is the 2 Contemptor.
Yeah, I think they look like
Contemptors, and then finally the largest, this man himself, then Telman, I think is how they pronounce it, or
I'm going to go with yes for that one. Yeah.
These words, English, God.
I don't know if anything that the Imperium are called could be referred to as English, but we will try and. I'm fairly certain Lloyd has probably got some pictures of these anyway, but we will get some close-up pictures, because what really drew me to what you've done over this weekend is the super detailing on some of these kits. I know I've talked about the Taurochs losing those terrible tracks ad nauseum. But you've gone beyond that. It's not just the track change, which was a resin change, but you've added stowage to it, you've added ladder and all sorts of things.
My main plan was, I had these, now I've had these a while, like anyone has, a big pile of plastic, but was in Salute this year, and a lot of the companies who do customized bits had bags of offcuts that they throw a big baggie together, and for £5, £10, and it was I picked up a good few of them, and luckily enough they have a lot of very useful pieces in it. So just decided, might as well use it and add it to them. I have a few Forge World extra armor plate kits, and Cromlech have a few bits for adding to the rhinos and all specific kits. So I got them and said we'll go for it and add as much as we can, make use of it.
And you really have gone for it. I mean, things like the ladder at the side, and it's being hung off a couple of strips of cardboard.
Yeah, Thomas was again chatting. I was trying to say to him, look, how will I get that in there? And he says, very clever way is literally the box that's off one of my starter boxes, cardboard. You slice it nice and thin, and the one trick he said was figure out which way the cardboard bends. It has a natural bend in itself. Cut with it and just wrap it up. It won't crack on you. And then, as you can see there, I don't know if you can see it, it just turns out to look like some leather straps, which is, you know, it was a simple solution for something that I was trying to think, will I make hooks or just something I wasn't going to figure out myself. And then we've moved on again. Thomas again was created a shield for, I don't know if you can get that, created a shield for kind of a robotic robot that I was trying to create, make it look a bit more 40k-ish. And again, just simple tips of 3 steps on a shield or anything you're trying to make, go 3. So your shape is number 1, then you add another layer, be it a detail thing, and then you add a final layer of the outer bits. And he says 3 steps will make it look real, and make it look like what you want.
Something built.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So and it's achieving it. I'm happy with that. My goal was to get things built and converted, and I've been doing it anyway as best I can, because at home the wife wouldn't be letting me do a full weekend of building and tinkering and modeling, and with kids as well, you just don't get that time. So a weekend like this is absolutely ideal.
It's good that it's been productive and that you've picked up a few bits and pieces anyway along the way.
Taking a lot of this home with me, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy.
Grand job, as we say. I'm going to shuffle down because Julian's been hiding as well, painting. So hiding. Well, most people have been hiding because we've mostly been stuck in that corner because of the length of this wire. It's terrible, really. Anyway, so you kicked off with Demons on the Friday, and I've been left unmolested to get things done. You lucky devil.
Yeah, that was the aim, just sit in this corner and get on with it. Initially, that was it, just get as much built and painted as I could, but that goal changed thanks to Thomas. He comes up with the sort of no barriers approach to modelling. There's no limits, and instructions are sort of ripped up and thrown away, that sort of thing. So I, with the help of Thomas, started working on a conversion here. Which I think has been shown earlier on in the weekend. Two screamers here, which normally have, if I can find the other ones, that sort of head to it. But I sort of had an idea of using these heads here from the Lord of Change box set. Not that I just bought the Lord of Change box set for 2 damn heads. No, I got a free.
You wanted the wings as well.
Yeah, I got a free Lord of Change out of it, sort of thing. So he taught me through the conversion process, how to line up the heads with the body, and the use of the brass rods in there as well, and just build up on layers around the necks here. So I'm very happy with the way it turned out.
It really does have that Zinchian flaming chicken look as well.
Yeah, KFC all the way. So it's very happy with it. I still got to dry it off. It takes one of the about it. You've got to leave it a good 4 or 5 hours to dry before you start working at it again. But I've still got green stuff here. I'll tinker away at it maybe when I get back to the house and that sort of thing.
But in amongst the tinkering, you've also got some pigment on models as well. So I see pink horrors, blue horrors, and flamers. I tried to. Well, I did use the contrast paints for the first time this weekend. Normally I'm sort of airbrush, but as I say, took the opportunity to use contrast paints, just mixing blues in with the pinks, just to try and get a blend going there. Within every pink horror, there's a blue horror bursting to get out, sort of idea. Sometimes 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was those ones there, and the flamers here. A couple of dry brushes after you've initially put the contrast paints on, so it just helps highlight some of the outer areas and gives it a bit of colour, character.
Yeah, detail and definition. How have you found using the contrast for blending?
Bringing from one colour to another, you have to be quite careful because they will go to purple extremely quickly, and you can end up just with a purple limb as opposed to maybe the blue and pink that you want. So it's trial and error. I think some of the early ones are. Maybe this one might have been, just see it's just a mass of purple in there where I was trying to get the blue and red separate, but
more of a bruise than a blend.
Blues, plumage even.
Beautiful plumage. Right. Well, I'll let you crack on anyway. But I do like to see the bright and vibrant contrast of the pink and blue together. It is a classic look anyway. And I see so many demons cropping up around this place this weekend, it's frightening. I should deal with them all with a hammer. But I won't, I'll be good for once. I'll be good for once. Could be a toffee hammer. If I can find some McGowan's Highland toffee. I'm going to go back behind this pillar because I know Lance likes it. Am I coming out again, Lance? What side am I coming out? Oh, no, other side. There we go. I'll annoy you. Right, so I think I can smell chips, which means people are going for lunchy munchies time. We're starting to wind down here. We've got a few more things to do this afternoon, including picking the winners. But over the next hour or so before we run into that, you've still got time to update your project logs with the 40k Hobby Weekend, and to follow us on Twitter with the hashtag 40k Hobby Weekend. See, I'm very clever, Mr. Bond. And let us know how you've been getting on with your projects and what you think of the projects the guys in and around here have been doing. And if there's anything you want to see that we haven't taken good pictures of, this is your final opportunity to let us know. So we're going to move on and eat some of his chips. Bye-bye. We're finished. People have already started sliding off. People want to go to the bar. Some people want to play games. They're weird. Yeah. But we have reached the end of our hobby time for this 40k Hobby Weekend. You've managed to get an army done. You madman.
I did. So we've lit the table. Hopefully some of us are going to plan on maybe getting a game. Somebody can teach me how to use Daemons. Otherwise, I'm just going to make it up. And that'll be fun.
Lloyd's all about the demons and ship.
Lloydie, if you can get a pan of the table all lit up, because I know people have been waiting and dying to see it lit up. Yeah, loads of lights. You could do it at home, maybe on a smaller scale, but you could do it at home. My favorite bit is probably the Zeppelin, which was your idea.
It was my
You
idea.
Inspired that, so you did.
I'm a winner. Everybody's winners, but I'm most of the winner.
Yeah, so you're responsible for the idea, and Justin's responsible for the Achilles being upside down.
Yes.
So
it's very important people know that.
That was Justin's responsibility. So no, but I love it. I love the whole spotlight effect on it. It's got that. Anytime I think of a Zeppelin at night, I think of that with spotlights and stuff going on. If I could have moved the spotlights, Jerry,
just have one on the top of it, just peering down like Batman.
I've been researching online, okay, and I found this device. It's battery powered, and it kind of goes like that there.
I think I've seen those devices.
I was thinking of strapping a torch to the end of it.
And that'd be interesting.
Put it on the
that
table.
Would be. Yeah.
And it has a kind of like a dual purpose.
Very, very much
because,
so. Yeah.
you know, as well as it animating the lights, it also has a kind of eternity kind of a look to it.
It does like the Great Beast.
Yes. Yeah. So it's maybe next time, whenever you arrive at the table, there'll be a few of them all rattling away there. So it's I'm
imagining them now, and it's something I'm probably going to go on imagining for some time until therapy stops me imagining that. Yeah.
Well, we can always mind bleach for that. Right. I built an army.
He did. Built an army.
So this is my battle-ready demon army. I'm quite pleased with that. So yeah, round of applause for Warren, for God's sake. Speech. Yes, first army. That was all my own work this time. First 40k army built and painted in Well, I need to go and look at the date on the first cease and desist letter that I got, but it's the first one since then. So
framed in the office.
yeah, so it's but no, I'm really pleased with it. Obviously, it's only battle ready, so I need to go back and do some details, or do what every wargamer does and just sit and think about the details that I may add at some undefined point in the future.
Undefined point in the future. No.
So, other than that, loads of people got loads done. Did you enjoy yourselves? Yeah. Oh, come on! Did you enjoy yourselves? Yeah, that's more like it. Right. We have chainsword kits to give away.
We do have chainsword kits to give away, yes. Do you
Right,
know who they're going to?
yes.
Yeah, that's very good of you.
The digital... For the digital ticket holder, I was about to say you get a digital chainsword. No, you get a real one. It's whenever you're finished, it'll look something like this. So it will. This is Justin's. The handle's very sticky.
Still sticky.
Yeah, but this is Justin's. Now the difference between yours and Justin's is Justin's has an extra 6 inches on it. Okay, we have to, for legal reasons, we have to explain that. So Justin's is 6 inches longer by default, but yours will still be cool. Okay, and I would imagine that yours won't. Listen. Hold the microphone there. Right. This is to prove that it is actually Dignity's, such a name, chainsword.
Oh, that's delightful, isn't it? So, who has won the digital ticket version of this?
The digital ticket chainsword is going to Dark Denegan for his Militarum Tempestus. So well done, dude. Reach out
Very well done.
Via the prize claim form. Yeah, reach out to us via the prize claim form, get us your address and everything, and we will get that winging its way to you. Right. We also have a chainsword kit for one of the participants here.
We do, and it goes to the person who gave me the biggest envelope full of cash while nobody was looking. So that was good.
You going to split that?
No.
Then I'm going to pick the winner. Because I also got an envelope. Right, so this was we picked out just someone that just inspired us over the weekend with their hobby and just what they'd done, and the winner.
Not that you're all other losers, though. I'm just saying, but you are in a way all losers.
Yeah. So the winner of the non-sticky chainsword that looks exactly like the sticky chainsword but not 6 inches longer. Is George. Well done, George. Now, George, before you come over, you have a tech priest on a flying chair that utterly blew us away. Can you bring it over so we can all have a look at it?
It's a wondrous piece of 40k mentalism.
Yes.
I think is the way that's told.
So people have been talking to me about this all weekend. Oh, into the light. Let's go into the light, will we? So here we go. There. What about that? On the 40k table. Right. Well, okay. There's lights on the 40k table. I forgot about that. So yeah, I know. There we go. So how did you do this?
I got first I saw when all the Age of Sigmar Nighthaunt stuff came out.
Yeah.
And I saw the ghost like king on a throne with his giant mace.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to make a tech priest out of that, because if you want to make an army, in my opinion at least, if you want to make an army, your leader has to look different than like anything else.
I couldn't agree more.
It's just the coolest thing to do.
And that is one of the coolest conversion of the weekend, man. You loads of people are talking about it. Well done, George. Justin will give your chainsword a wipe down, man, and then we'll get it posted off to you. Right. Okay, that completes our coverage of the 40k weekend. Is that right? Did you bring Laughing Boy and all in on a chat? No, we didn't get hold of it. Oh, right, okay. Right, okay, so he's in the middle of a game. That completes it for us for this weekend, but there may still be streaming going on down below us over on OnTableTop.com in the guest slots. We're going to go and get a few games in. Thank you very much for participating. We'll talk to you a bit more about getting some feedback and stuff from you guys in the Weekender this weekend. Right, thank you to all of our guests. You have been fabulous. and I've completed my objective of I've learned a bit, I taught a bit. Isn't that right?
Just a bit.
Just a bit, but I had a whole lot of fun. Right, thank you for watching, thank you for participating, and we'll see you at the next one.